Well, Mike, my husband, he's probably one of the most supportive people I've known, which is one thing that really attracted me to him. An example is, for example, when we first started dating or whatever, I let him know that I was into performing arts and I like to sing and do musical theater in the past. And he had auditioned for the Oakland Gay Men's Chorus before, but he wasn't able to stick with it. But he said, well, Ron, you should go audition if you really like to sing. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it would be fun to perform and sing again. And I hadn't thought about doing it for a while. So I auditioned, I got in, and he was willing to drive me to rehearsals in Oakland all the time and just be like a supportive, we call them choir husbands. There's a couple, not a lot of guys in the choir are married, but he would just be willing to do that.
Oh, all about Ron. Well, I could write a whole book about that. Ron has a good sense of humor. He has a terrific smile. He's always there.
And he's very accepting. A lot of people know in the past, I had a rough time after my mom passed away, and I was actually homeless for a little while. And that's something I didn't share with a lot of people, but on our first marathon date, which was like an afternoon into evening date, I shared that. And he just was the kind of guy who you felt like you could say anything to.
In bad times and good times, he cheers me up when it's not so good. And he's like my mother who always said, better days are coming. He's always so positive thinking. I
was in therapy and my therapist said, well, now that you're settled somewhere, you should try to maybe think about dating. I'm like, okay. So in Livermore, being gay, it's kind of hard to date. I went to San Francisco and I lived there for 7 years, San Francisco State. And there, it's fairly easy to date. You go to the bars, whatever, pre-COVID. But out in Livermore, it's kind of hard to find other gay guys. So I was like, well, meetups. She said, there's a thing called meetups. You can find groups there, and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So I went on to Meetup, and it was a group based out of a gay center, I think in Concord. I think it's called Social Gazing, don't know if it still exists. And I wanted to go to, they were having a movie night.
They were gonna meet that Friday, the 27th of July, to see a certain movie. I think it's Call Me By Your Name, something like that. But anyway, Ron joined the Meetup group on Monday, the 23rd of July, and he says, hi, I'm Ron, and I'm from Livermore, and I'm new to the group. Well, hi, Ron. This is Mike here. I'm new to the group, too, and I'm from Livermore, too. So we were messaging privately back and forth, and it was so hectic that whoever hit the enter key first got his message through. Otherwise, if you didn't, you had to start over. So we decided to join Facebook, and we talked and talked and talked. And he said, well, he lives in Livermore. I said, what part of Livermore? East end of Jack London. So do I. And I live on Torino Street. Oh, I live on Tiffin Place, and my jaw dropped and I almost fell off the couch. What a pleasant coincidence, because Tiffin Place, I had never heard of the street before in Livermore. I'd been there for many years. And Tiffin Place is actually the town where I was born. So anyway, we had our first date the next day at Starbucks. We talked. We met, Ron doesn't drive, I picked him up. We drove to Starbucks and Airway.
I just never learned to drive and I never drove. People think it's crazy. I think I shocked him. I gave him a peck on the cheek the very first time I got in the car. I think that shocked him a little bit.
Had our first date and we talked for about 4 hours.
Mike will know for sure, so Mike, if I'm wrong, I apologize. I think it might have been like 4 hours. 3 hours we sat there and just talked.
And I asked Ron, are you hungry? Yeah. Well, let's go out to dinner, some nice restaurants in downtown Livermore. I didn't know one from the other.
So we went to Livermore Aviation. It's this really cool restaurant by the bankhead where it's above. It's not always open, but it's on the roof. Again, the name Aviation. And we had with dinner. And it was a pretty night, pretty sunset. It was a great view. And yeah, so it was like an all day into evening date.
And total of the 2 dates together was 7.5 hours. And it's the best job I've ever had. I took a half hour off for lunch.